is happening, man?
Not much,
What's
buddy.
going on, bro?
Just a beauty day, man. Got the kids off and ready to daycare, and now it's time to go crush it.
Yes, sir. So, man, I'm excited as always to jump into these coffee and coaching formats. It's our traditional hot seat format that we run during mastermind events, and really being able to kind of get a little bit of an origin story, kind of current reality. You know, where's that compass set? You know, for the business and for yourself. What's working well, man. You know, like you know, having the best returns, whatever it is, right? Where are we? The effort and energy, where are we focused that's bearing the most fruit? And then, you know, the majority of the conversation around, you know, kind of where we're stuck. What's that big bottleneck that we're trying to remove so that we can allow, you know, throughput to continue to flow. So welcome, brother, to a little coffee and coaching.
Nice, man. Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having me here. I'm pumped to hop on this with you. I mean, we get to chat every week, and they're always great. So, I guess a little bit about me is where I should start then. So, one of the owners of the Benson Crew. How did I get here? Was kind of that first question you'd asked there, and I guess it's kind of funny actually. I started not even in any sort of business role at all. I was a heavy machinery mechanic at 19, running like massive tower cranes in a yard full of mobile cranes. I was one of the head mechanics there doing all that stuff. And then I bought my first flip and was just absolutely gobsmacked at how rough the real estate industry is with the wrong agent. I had an agent, I was 19. I had a dog at home, and I had 75 showings in a month on my house. And that agent, when I said, like, why aren't we selling? Maybe we should do a price drop. She said, no, I think we just need to stage it better. And I was like, I don't think after 75 people. So I ended up like pushing my own price reduction down and getting it sold. And then I'd always said, like, I'm going to, you know, I could do real estate. And then 2008 hit. And everything dropped, and I found myself looking for a new role. And I did what I always did. I was good with my hands. I was welding, doing all this stuff. And my one buddy's like, man, you said you could do this. I'm calling you out on it. So went and got my real estate license and got into real estate. And I used to work a weekend shift. So I was a part-timer, which is not my favorite kind of, you know, for all the people that own a brokerage listening. That's not always my favorite thing is the part-timer, but I work a weekend shift. And anyways, I got a good coach, and the coach said to me, he said, hey man, you can't do both. And he said, listen, what's it going to take for you to go full-time real estate? And I said, I want to sell 4 houses this month. He said, if you do it, will you quit your job? I said, absolutely. We coached. I sold 4 houses that month, and I quit my job. I didn't sell any houses the next month, but I definitely sold 4 that month. So then there was the grind, and that got me into coaching. And that also got me introduced to Steve and Blake, my current, 2 of my current partners right now. And then we went down that road. And then shortly after that, we found, we got into you and Jay and Mike, and you guys taught us kind of how to run a business, not just how to make cold calls. So we dialed that in, and then from there we formed our own company, Zon Team. Well, it already existed. Steve had already been running that, but we took it over and built out the residential side and grew that into a few agents and trials and tribulations, doing crazy things like building our own CRM system. Back before we had AI to build anything, we had developers on staff and fun, crazy things like that. And kept growing the team up and then down and then up and then down, and then built a ton of systems. We were always really systems oriented, and that's what we've always done really well. And just over a year ago, we'd had some great conversations. We joined Real and had some great interactions with Scott Benson. And we joined Real, and we'd seen, you know, Scott runs his business in such a unique way. And then we got in touch with this other guy, Ryan Campbell, that ran the Crew out of a different neighboring market to us. And he ran his business in this way we'd never seen, you know, really big in the community, just really cool. And then there was our business, really systems oriented. And we all got talking. And over time, those relationships turned into what we are now, the Benson Crew. where we kind of took all of our strengths that were different, put them together, and have built our team. So that's kind of the origin story that you asked for.
Yeah.
I talked a lot, so I gave you the short.
Hey, this is good, man.
Good.
So I think kind of a little bit of lay of the land, and more so, where are we going?
Where are we going? Well, I mean, the goal, we want to be the top team in Canada, and then expand from there. I think where we're headed right now, obviously, we've got a market that takes some grit and tenacity to navigate right now. So I think for now, we're just working on scaling, but we're not just trying to get big to be big. We're trying to get big because, we need to be big because we're producing for that, and that growth warrants it. So I think that's our bigger goal right now is to keep leveling up that production, take that top spot, and using all our strengths to it. So Scott is really good with some really awesome marketing ideas that he's used that, he brought in when we joined, that we were like, that'll be kind of cool. And they've been really big money makers for our team, which we love to see. Ryan is just a grinder, man. That guy hustles. And I love to see that. He brings a lot of strength there. And then with AI and everything that we've got, the system side of everything is really leveled up tenfold. Even just since we merged, the availability to us to create what we've had on our minds is just, gone so much faster. So it's managing all the systems and stuff we want to create. We're making it simple enough for our over 50 agents that we have on our team to be able to adopt and adapt to, and making sure we do it in alignment with that too, right? I mean, I can build something awesome today that I know how to use, but trying to get 50 agents to adjust to that without affecting their business is a huge challenge that we run into for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So with that being said, where are we going? Like, what's the vision? What do we envision? What are we trying to accomplish? What's important to you about, the direction and the future of not only Benson Crew, but real estate and the industry as a whole?
Yeah. I mean, where we're headed, it's a harder, I guess it's an easier question in terms of like, how do I want to answer this? I can talk volume. We can always talk volume all day, but I find in the marketplace that we're in with the landscape there that we're in, I'm more focused on how are we getting our team to be the team that's going to get us to that volume, right? Mm-hmm. So where are we going? I mean, we need to be a high producing team. We don't just want agents on our team. We want the best producers, and how do we get them there, right? Yeah, and I mean that's something that we've been really working at. We pay attention, like any business, we're paying attention to like what is our average production per agent that we want to see. How do we want that to fit into our business, and how are we getting them there, and then how are we recruiting these new agents to our model, right? How are we attracting people in? So I mean, our focus obviously like stay above the red first off in this marketplace. That's a big one, but that's reactionary. Where we're going to get to, I mean, we need to grow our agent count. We want to add another, right now we need to add another at least six more agents in the next few months to our team. Like that's a big focus that we have. Keep our agents operating where they're at.
Right. Immediate focus. And the importance is like, as tight as things can become in our businesses. And that's usually what happens, right? Because, the effort to continue to push forward and grow requires a ton of oxygen, which in our business, oxygen is just cash. And it gets real hard to dream when things get really tight. And however, if we don't continue to dream, then we get lost and we start to stall out. And that's where we idle out, and that's not growth. And I just am of the binary belief you're either growing or dying. And if we're not growing and we're stagnant, then what is that? So, it's really, really important for us to lock in on, that North Star of where we're going. And then a lot of things along the way. And you said, what's really important is, the agents. And I think what's even more important is who we must become in order to achieve the dreams and the outcome that we're after. So Nick, talk to us a little bit about what's working well, right? Like what's working, you can put your finger on and hey, this is where we're seeing momentum. This is what's pushing, the ball down the hill. This is what's giving us the most momentum and motion and success right now moving forward.
Yeah, and I mean, just to point out, you asked me that question. I will say, like, our North Star is we want to get to 2 billion by 2034, right? So, but that number right now in this market, to me, that feels huge, and there's a lot of work we need to do. So, what is our focus right now? What's going to get us there right now? I think when you merge 3 teams together, having a standard is a really hard thing, because you get top producing agents that are used to doing it a certain way. You get new agents that are coming into the system that are from a different team doing it this way. I think alignment is probably the hardest thing you have to overcome. And I think that's our biggest thing right now, is aligning, making sure, like, who is Benson Crew? What is our culture, right? You mentioned, getting to the North Star, we got to simplify it. So there's all the numbers and stuff that we need to hit. But when I keep, peeling off layers of the onion, it's what's at the core that we have to achieve first before we can even work on those things. Mm-hmm. And I think, for us right now, it's alignment. It's making sure our agents are aligned with what are we providing them, and what do we expect from them to give that, right? Where is that? How we set that clear crystal expectation with them? What are the standards that we're going to uphold? And then it's also, once you get to a certain size too, there's only so much time and so much that we can do. So it's how can we be efficient, and how can we hold the right standards and have the right filters to say yes or no? When is it time for an agent to be coached up, and when is it time for an agent to be coached out of our business? And also, when is it time for us to reflect and say, hey, we're not doing what we said we're going to do, and we need to change that standard? I think those are a lot of the big things at the core right now that I've been playing with. And so, like, right now, this quarter, one of our big focuses is literally to go through every single agent on our team and dissect everything, the commitments, where they're at, their production, how they're even managing our systems, all of that, and then have that conversation and get them on track to make sure that our agreements are in alignment and that we can push forward. And I think if we can do that at a certain level with a lot of these agents, we're going to be able to know where to put our efforts and focus as well as a team.
So is that what's working, or is that the bottleneck that needs improvement? What's working?
Well, what's working right now, I mean, every quarter we do our strategy. John, you're always there. That's a huge one. What's working right now is we are aligning on that, and we're big each quarter. We're not just trying to, eat the whole elephant. We're taking a bite at a time. So this quarter, what's working right now, getting our trainings dialed in as a leadership team, that's been a huge thing for us. That's something over the years we've always kind of struggled, getting a clear training schedule that everyone shows up and participates in. And we're really seeing some numbers there. That's something that's working really well. Another thing that's working really well, we are leveraging our systems to our advantage. Mm-hmm. We have some crazy systems. It's awesome, and we're using those tools. We're leveraging those. And I also think what's working is we're leveraging each other's strengths. Each one of us that joined this team has a different strength to offer. And I still think we're all in those lanes pushing towards those strengths and making sure we're, like, at our highest and best use. So I think that's something that's working extremely well amongst our team. Yeah,
I would agree. I think, our branding, our messaging, our offer into the market, our willingness to, pour gas on the lead generation and really focusing on the acquisition side of things, right? Kind of our acquisition system. I would definitely say Benson Crew's strengths are brand and image and systems and structure. Visibility. We got some of the best visibility into any size business that you can really, really ask for. So I think there's a common thread amongst leadership side of things, that's willingness to innovate, improve, and not afraid of tech, right? I love that. And one of the big things I think is super important for folks to get their head around is that anytime that you merge together, that's a new company, that's a new start. And basically all of the startup businesses have that clock kind of resets and starts ticking. Now, can we accelerate through things? Of course, right? We already have system structure where we're able to come together, but we have to, remember, we think immediately it should just boom, catapult us. when you're learning new styles, new leadership, new culture, new core values. It's all new. That means, make sure the business model is dialed in, the strategy is being executed, and the team dynamic and structure always changes, right? You change the goal, you change the team. And so we changed the team, and then we tried to figure out the goal, and then now it's fine tuning the team. So it's just some really awesome lessons for folks that want to go the acquisition and merger route, because I think that is a real growth strategy in today's market, as there's so many teams that are struggling, and you guys have the horsepower and the back end support and structure to roll struggling teams into y'all's ecosystem that can really support and help other teams. I think it's just those team leaders have to let their ego go and make sure that they're open to getting to the goal. And, that's the whole outcome over ego, getting to right instead of trying to be right. So you guys, I would lean in hard on the brand and the systems are some of the best things in the assets that you guys have working for you. So Nick, as we shift, where's the struggle, right? Where's the, keeping you up at night? Where is that big challenge rocking your shoe right now?
Yeah, I'm going to say, I still feel it's some of the same stuff that we've kind of always owning a team fought with, man. It's that those normal struggles are still what keeps me up at night. Like lead conversion, man. John, I've been diving deep into our follow-up boss and our lead conversion systems. And I'm still watching dollars walk out the door. I mean, every day. I mean, I went in the other day and I'm like, well, there's, over $10 million worth of business that if it had gotten into the right hands and follow-up, probably could have been converted. So we're still seeing that. And that's a normal struggle. I totally get that. We're managing people, not robots. So you're going to see that. But that's definitely one. Keeping our owners aligned. We're all busy. Not only are we, a lot of us were in our role as leadership, but we're also in a role as production. I still produce. A lot of our owners are still in production as well. So I think some of the struggles is just managing efficiency. We need to go out and in this year, you just, there's no one I've heard in this marketplace yet that's like, oh, this is easy. So it's a matter of like, we need to be out and producing and bringing dollars into the company so that we can make sure that we're supporting it. And we're doing that, but it takes time. And then as you grow with the agents, it's also efficiency. So we've cut over 50 agents. We need to put our focus into the right ones so that the team benefits the most. So I think some of our biggest struggles right now is actually giving the right agents the right support that actually matters to them and managing it in a way where it's not one size fits all. We need to have different options and being able to help our team in different ways. I think that's a big struggle. We've got our core values and they're new. Like everything is new. So we've got these 3 different teams that have come together. Now we're the Benson crew, but who is that? I think that's a big struggle. We've got 3 core values: crew first, own the outcome, and raise the standard. Those are our 3 core values. But those haven't been adopted by the full team as, the Benson crew core values yet, because we're still working through that path, right? Yeah. And I'm seeing that more and more every day is that's more at the core of where we're at, is that we've merged these 3 teams and we have awesome systems, awesome marketing. If you've got a big team and you bring it in, we're going to be able to give you all the tools to just run and grind and get it. But on that, every time we add a new team, every time we add that, we need to make sure that we have a super strong culture so they know what they're getting into. They know what expectations are and they know who we are and we know who we are. And I think that's still on its way. We're still working through that.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, right? That's the constant question is who are we? Who do we want to be? And ties back to my favorite book on culture. It was Ben Horowitz's second book, right? We are basically how we behave, how we show up. That's our culture, right? It's who we are. Culture is just a collection of your people, and how you behave is really what your culture is. It's not what you say it is. It's not the words on the wall. It really is how you're behaving day in and day out. That's the real essence. That's the real culture. And so I think it's still pushing and asking ourselves, because I mean, the reality is with the conditions in the market, I mean, we're building and rebuilding and building and rebuilding that airplane while it's up in the air. And I think that's sometimes not for the faint of heart. A lot of people don't have the stomach for, what it takes to be agile and okay that what you're working on today is no longer relevant tomorrow, right? That's a kind of a defeating feeling. But we got to make sure that our feelings don't get in the way of the facts. And the facts are, we're trying to accomplish certain business metrics, and it's just pushing to be able to try it. So Nick, I know, when we go through strategy, we go through an exercise that we call SWOT, right? Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Strengths and weaknesses are internal, opportunities and threats are external. So like when we look at the threat bucket, like for us, right, being in a military town, the real threat was housing, base realignment. What's Fort Sill going to do? What's the Army going to do? What's the new administration going to do? So we were always on high alert with, what was happening at Fort Sill, what was happening in the military side of things. So when we look at kind of market conditions, things that are out of our control, but we need to be aware of, when we look at kind of the climate of real estate in Ontario, how are we navigating, real estate? How are we navigating, the economy? How are we navigating the whole housing landscape inside of our market, but also carrying that back to not only ourselves, to not immediately defeat ourselves when things are hard, but how are we staying optimistic? How are we looking for where the puck's going? How do we navigate things out of our control in a challenging market, but also convey back to the team and the communication to where we just don't, stop doing things because we're like, hey, Nick, houses aren't selling, man. The market's horrible. Might as well just, stay in bed today. So how are we navigating the awareness of the market, being able to communicate to the team, that we still have to keep, putting one foot in front of the other?
Yeah, man. I actually just had a conversation similar to this the other day with one of the partners. It's crazy. I mean, here in Canada, I mean, even yesterday, just pulling up my phone and watching all the crazy stuff happening, tariffs back and forth and all that. It's all impacting our marketplace.
Sure.
And then there's also, when we look at that North Star we talked about, our team wanting to be able to do $2 billion by 2034. I mean, simply put, there's only so many houses in Ontario that can be sold before we have to start expanding into different markets and stuff too. And when our industry takes a hit, we have to keep that in mind. And I think it's that, it's managing that push and pull. And we have a great setup. We have 5 partners and 5 owners in our business, which is quite, that's not as normal. Right. And what's kind of neat about it is, like, especially like a sales guy like myself and some of the leaders that are full in sales, we always look at it as like, well, if the market's down, just work harder, and we don't look at it as like, hey, you just got to take it. Like, the market's down. Like, we looked at the one marketplace near us and it's down 80%, like 80% less transactions year over year right now. And so when we're looking at that, it's keeping that in mind. But then we've got Scott on our team, and he's one of the biggest, like, hey, like, look at the shiny side here. Like, look at what we actually have done. Look at where we've gone, and keep this in mind. And like, yeah, it's hard. Like, we're just, let's make it through some of that stuff, because we're still doing, like, the other day, we've got 135 listings on market right now with an average list price of around $750,000, $800,000. So we've got a good amount of volume, and we look at it as salespeople as like, holy shit, we have 135 listings on the market. Like, we shouldn't have that many. We need to be selling those bad boys. And Scott's saying, hey, we should be so lucky. Like, we're having, like, that's a banner year for a lot of teams to have that many listings going. We've got that much opportunity signed. We just need to, work through it. And so really having the right people in the room to keep that mindset there is definitely key, I think, as we're growing. And it's not just key for us as owners, it's key for us as a team. That's what the team is hearing, right? Our biggest threat for sure right now is the marketplace, as it is for most people right now, right? It's the marketplace that we're in, and recognizing that it's not just a matter of like, all right, well, everyone just needs to work harder and do more deals. It's like, well, we need to adjust our goals, our systems, our expectations to match our current reality. And one thing we also do really well is, the saying, what you don't track, you can't measure. Well, we track
Everything.
We track shit. We don't even know what to do with half the shit we're tracking, right? And that's great. Better looking at it than looking for it. But what's nice about that is when we do really need to have those reality check moments, we have the tools and systems to have it. We're not just going by feel. It's not an emotional, okay, well, I don't feel like we're producing. We can really look at the numbers and just go, okay, this is a decision based on logic, right? Because the higher emotions go, the more diluted logic is. So when we've got those systems, those numbers, we've got someone like Steve on our team. Steve is head of company, and he's a nerd, I always say, because he loves his numbers, he loves looking into it. But he's got all these systems for us to actually see what's happening, not taking a guess at it. We can actually see right down to the agent what is happening, and that's huge. In my role as sales leadership, that's really big for me as well, because I might start going, we're not trying hard enough, we're not doing this. And then when I go look at it, I'm like, well, we're still, in comparison to where the market's at, we're still doing a large production there. Our numbers are still good. When we're looking at our agents, we can see this is what the average amount of production per month per agent is. We know that number as well. So we can see whether that's going down or going up.
Right. Yeah. The absolute visibility. So the constraints are right there, but for you, trying to bring things together within your role, within kind of the organization. I guess we know kind of what the company's focused on, but for you personally, what's that big rock in the shoe?
Big rock in my shoe. It changes quarter by quarter for me. It's still alignment is the easiest way for me to say, but what is that? I mean, that's pretty ambiguous. So I think standards is a huge thing for me. When you get into a team of over like 50 agents from different teams, I know definitely when we joined, I said this in one of my strategy preps, was that it feels like everything is optional. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I think it's switching from that. Everything isn't optional. We got contracts, we have standards, and we need to hold those. Because if we don't, then we're just going to be a big team, but we're not, like I said, we want to be bigger because we need to be bigger, not just be bigger so we can say we're a big team. Right. And so holding that standard and really using those core values as decision-making filters, I think is really big for me right now. So crew first, making sure that I'm putting a lot of focus into the agents, that they don't just want to, hey, what are you going to do for me? We're getting those agents that are like, hey, obviously I've got a family to provide for. What are you doing for me? But, I'm going to do this because it sets an example for the team. Really focusing on that second level leadership and those agents that care, that put the crew first. Because if we can get more second level leadership in our team, it's going to make our job easier. Plus, it's going to improve our culture. Raising the standard is like the hardest thing for me. I'm definitely going to say that is the biggest struggle. We've got different tiers of agents throughout our company. We've got top producers that, they got to producing the way that they do things and they don't want to shift from that. And we don't want to disrupt them either. They're out there making money doing their thing. But then we've got agents that have joined our team that want to level up. And we need to be able to put time and effort into them, but they have to put the effort in. So making sure that we've got the right checks and balances for those agents, that we can, roll it out across the team. And then owning the outcome. So I'm going through the core values for a reason, because when I'm looking at my focus, it's like, John, you and I talked on Tuesday about this. It's like, who is Benson Crew? Mm-hmm. And our core values, like you said, they weren't core values. We said, well, let's pick these and make the company this way. It's like, what do we already have? What do we already know? A lot of these core values came from the other teams when we merged. And I'm just looking at those as my decision-making filters on where my focus needs to go. And owning the outcome is something that I think is my biggest focus this quarter, in terms of we're generating opportunities. Everybody on our team, everybody in this marketplace needs to grind right now, right? Doing the basics that used to work a few years ago, that doesn't work as well now. Now it's like, okay, we need to go above and beyond. And what we're seeing in our company is we're generating these opportunities for these agents, but are they owning the outcome? And are we putting the right systems and tools in place so that they can own the outcome? And even further than that, it's, do they even know what the expectation of the outcome is?
And
And
they
I
know
think
the outcome
that's
they have to own, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of at the core of it. And that's what Steve and I are working really hard on right now, is like, are we setting the expectation? Are we setting the outcome that we expect out of each agent so that they know?
Yeah. Well, my only recommendation in, you know, from a clarity perspective is like, listen, I would just be real careful with the word expectation, and it's more of an agreement of success to the outcome that needs to be owned. I just like, I cringe at the word expectation, because every time I hear that word, my mind goes immediately to failure. That's like,
Yeah.
expectation equals failure. And so when you operate with an expectation, you're going to be let down 100% of the time. And, you know, just kind of reflecting back to Nick, just and obviously a little insider information and knowledge, I think probably some more emphasis on total buy-in around who we are and the values and the purpose. I feel like we might have just slapped it together to almost maybe check the box, instead of really sitting with it and spending some time on who are we. And it's beautiful. We had to do what we had to do. I mean, we just celebrated, you know, 1 year of being together, and it's really remarkable, the amount of headwind in merging 3 different cultures and companies together to form a new one, which I think it was brilliant, in the thinking and the coming together, to help navigate the current conditions of the marketplace. And I really think a lot of other individuals and leaders need to consider that. And the only reason they wouldn't consider it, Nick, is ego, right? It's just their ego, and they want to beat their chest. They want to be the man, instead of like, how can we come together and work together and move faster, and also make a bigger impact, a bigger you know, dent in whatever it is that we're trying to accomplish.
And I you know, it's funny because you told me so many times and I still do it. So I laugh. It's like, yes, that expectation word. And maybe I need to print it and put it on the wall with a big stroke through it to remind myself not to use that word. It's definitely, yeah. What's the agreement? A question I might have for you, John, is like, what's the best way to set to get these agents on our team, or to get these members that we're working with, these teammates, to have a good, clear agreement? Like, what's the best way to sit them down and set that agreement? Because I know for me, when you say expectation, I agree with you. I'm the kind of person, I'm a rebel mindset. So if someone tells me I have to do something, even if I want to do it, I kind of don't now. And so if you sit someone down and say, these are our expectations of you, I know someone like me is going to be like, all right, well, kick rocks. You know what I mean? I'm going to do what I got to do.
Yeah.
So how do we bring that agreement and set that with them in a way that's going to motivate them, instead, you know, be a wind in their sails?
Yeah. So what you have to understand, everything operates as a function. So we're not hiring people and trying to figure out what to do with them. We're getting real clear on what is the function that is required within, you know, the strategy and the business model to hit the goal, to hit the target. So it's always kind of, you start with the end in mind, reverse engineer, and then you bounce back up. And how that goes is, okay, what's the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? How do we operate within the business model, right? ICP, you know, how is it created, you know, delivered, captured? How, you know, where does their job start? Where does it stop within that function? And then, you know, why is that function important to the overall objective? And then we're looking at the outcome that's required. And if you've got to give people a checklist, a job description, right? That's really what a job description is, just a checklist of, these are the things that I need you to check the box on. That's really where you start to get into trouble, and you start to get order takers. That's the roles that will get, you know, automated. That's, I mean, if it's a check the box type of process, I mean, that's not high skill, right? There's no critical thinking. There's nothing in that, you know, required to get the outcome. So what you have to look at is, okay, what is the function you're performing within sales, within marketing, within operations, within finance, within client experience. What is it, right? Like what's required. So we're saying, this is within the sales function. It's like, great. Then there's only a handful of things that we can look at within kind of the elements of sales that moves the needle in the business. And it's going to be, conversations, which is effort. It's going to be, setting and getting people to show up at appointments, which is skill. Being able to articulate your value and get somebody bought in to want to do business with you, which is just another skill required. And then, who they are as a human within the core values. But that's really where a salesperson's job starts and stops, is like, hey, marketing's job is to provide opportunities. Sales function is to turn those opportunities into cash. That is it. It takes a conversation. It takes an appointment. It takes getting clear on what they're wanting to accomplish, how our system can help them accomplish it. And then they agree to move forward. We pick them up as a client. Now we have the systems and the marketing and the support in the back end to help on the fulfillment side of things. But for the most part, a salesperson's job starts and stops right through there. Yeah. Are they going to have to negotiate? Of course, that's a skill. And so you can look at, Nick, we just laid out 4 or 5 outcomes that they're responsible for. And then you just determine, are those the 4 or 5 outcomes of how we're going to measure success in the function? Where we get in trouble is that we're like, we got Timmy over here, and what's Timmy going to do? And how are we going to make Timmy fit into this ecosystem? And you're like, no. You don't make Timmy fit. You lay out the function and you hire Timmy to the function, because the function fits. That's how it works. And where you get in trouble, and this is where agents always get in trouble, this is where team leaders, this is where small business gets in trouble, is that they love Timmy, so they're just going to find a place for Timmy. And what that is that you have a family. You don't have a team. And see, when you have a family, it's dysfunctional. It's a mess. You can't, get rid of your crazy uncle, your degenerate cousin. Like you just gotta deal with them, because it's a family. And it's all a mental shift, Nick. It's like, no, we ain't a family. We're a team. And that means everybody on the team has a function and a responsibility. And then it's Nick Saban. Just do your job. Like literally just do your job. And when you're focused on Timmy instead of the function is when you get feelings over facts. And that's where you get in trouble.
Yeah, it's tough, especially in a big merger like we did. It's hard to not start with the family route, because when you're bringing that many people together, what's one of the biggest things on your mind is we don't want to merge and lose them all. I think one of the things that I am not struggling with now, but it's always on the mind, we're always trying to figure out. And I don't know, I always feel like sometimes we're too light on it. It's that, we've talked about it before, that how do I know when to coach up and when to coach out? And it's like setting that, and it's so, let's say we get Timmy and it's like, just do your job. And we sit down and it's not getting done. We've talked about these, agreements, and agreements aren't being upheld. We all know it's, the top producing agents, generally they're bringing in the dollars, and they're self-starters. They got there because, they've got their bus, and you're either on it or not. And, they're doing their jam, and they relatively don't need that much. It's usually we break our company into base camp, lift, and summit. Summit agents obviously are our top producers. Base camp are our newbies learning it, and lift is the ones kind of in between that could go either way. It's hard because a lot of the energy can be pulled into that lift agent and that base camp agent, and setting good agreements is great. But what do we do if they're not, if we're coaching them and they're not holding those agreements? When do we know when it's like, all right, we're coaching you up or coaching you out? And I think we've had this conversation before. It's like, what kind of company do you want to run? Do you want to run a really strict company, or do you want to have an adaptable company? And, that's hard. I think getting alignment from all the partners on that too.
Pros and cons. Yeah. Pros and cons. Right. And are we good with the downside? Right. That's just kind of those conversations. And it really is, Nick, that you can be whatever you want to be, right? And you can be a family. There's just pros and cons to it. And you hit a ceiling pretty quick, within a family environment instead of a structured, accountable team environment. But I think too, strategically, I don't know if we would have done it any different, Nick, right? Like it's merging together, it's trying to keep people together, it's a perception that we're trying to illustrate. And I think it's just time, right? And you start making the adjustments, and you start ratcheting down a little bit tighter after you've gained a little presence and awareness in the marketplace, right? Like we're known. And I think that's another asset of being known, which is one of the moats around the business. And so, yeah, I mean, it's real hard. Obviously, it's easy to, be the critic from, the outside looking in, but it's the old adage, man. It's hard to see the label from inside of the jar, and we're making the best decisions, navigating, the environment that we can. And there's certain points in time that you don't want to lose people, but there's certain times that you need to ratchet it down and clean it up a little bit. And that could be kind of the timing of where the business is.
Yeah. And I think like that's such a good point, because I think that is like when I'm looking at our quarterly priorities and what we're working on, a lot of the stuff we've talked about today, we have all the systems and we're building it out, and we're working on all of that. It just takes time. And I mean, we've only been a team for just over a year.
I know.
And I'm,
wow.
And it's always like, it's not fast enough. We got to go faster. And, sometimes the speed kills too. We just got to take that time to adopt it, and not go too fast. Like we can only go so fast because our agents can only adopt so much anyways. Right. Like they've got to go hustle deals, so we can only bring them into that. So no, that's really good. I do love what you said there though. And I'm going to take that with me out of this, is the team versus family. And paying attention to that. That's a big distinction there.
Yeah. And I think too, remember, merging a couple of the cultures together, one of the cultures was family environment. And so, rolling in and changing, and sometimes, you just got to try it on and see how it feels, see how it fits, and then make the adjustments. And I think that's just timing where things are at. And, we're always the hardest on ourselves. And sometimes we need to also give ourselves a little grace.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff, brother. Well, I appreciate you jumping in here, man. A little coffee coaching, get on the hot seat, getting vulnerable and really sharing. And I appreciate that transparency, not only, with you, but rest of the squad. And you guys are definitely building something magical within, the Ontario market, and, getting a little bit of help within the market will do wonders, but we're built to handle whatever the heck it is that we want to handle. So, brother, I appreciate you. How can folks get connected? This resonated with them. They want to pick your brain a little bit more. Maybe they have, some experience that they can share. What's the best way for folks to get aligned and get connected with you?
Yeah, pretty easy. At the Nick Bergman on Instagram is a great way to get a hold of me. You can see what we're up to there. That's probably your fastest and easiest route. I'm not going to give people a million options. That's the best one. At the Nick Bergman on Instagram, or of course you can always check out anything Benson Crew. You'll find me there too.
Sweet, brother. Appreciate you guys. Give Nick some love, get connected, and we'll catch you on the next episode. See ya.